This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? Hey, Robbie, what's going on? I'm your host, Alice Stockton Rossini. Rob Barrett's my engineer, and you are here for all the right reasons. Yes, get it right. As in writing that first book. Come on, get her done. We are recording this around Mother's Day, so this goes out to every woman with a story she needs to tell, every heartbreak she needs to share, every moment she considers sacred. We're going to kick this show off with Alice Camiso. She wrote, "What do you think is the color of God?" Let's dial her up, all right? Hi, Alice. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine.
This is Alice calling from Page Publishing.
Oh, hi, Alice. How are you?
You know what? There's not a lot of people named Alice.
Yeah.
Are you out on Long Island?
I'm in Merrick.
Oh, Merrick. Okay. What do you think is the color of God, Alice? So this is a book of poetry, right?
Yes.
Okay.
God is a spirit. So God encompasses all colors. That's my opinion on God. I mean, God is like a life force. God is the spirit within you. God is omnipresent. God is omniscient. God is everywhere. So I believe that the Spirit of God has allowed me to write all this poetry for years and years. So, I get the words in my head and I write them down. And when I get enough of these little poems, I put them together, I type it up, and I put them in a book. So I have all these books, and I thought that since I'm going to be 80 years old
Wow.
in another few weeks, I thought it was about time I started trying to publish them. Now, my first book, which was much longer than the books that I sent to you, I made copies and copies of it, and I sent it out all over. I sent it to publishers, I sent it to universities, and all I got were rejection slips. And then I wanted to self-publish it, and they sent me a contract that was so out of reach. I just wasn't able to afford it. So listening to WOR, I heard about Page Publishing, and I thought I would try you. And that's what I've been doing. So this is my second book that I have already published with Page Publishing. And I have at least 8 or 9 more books that I would like to publish before I die.
Books full of poetry.
They're all poetry, and one memoir that I've been writing for many, many years, which is still being written.
Jeez, Alice, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I'm an artist also. So right now I have an exhibit at the North Merrick Library of all my collages. And in June, I'm having an exhibit at the Elmont Public Library of jockeys and horses. That's what I do. I mean, I've been retired for many years, so this is my hobby. I've never sold a painting, but that's what I do.
What'd you do before you retired?
I've worked in all kinds of companies. I've been mostly like secretary, administrative assistant. I was an office manager. I've been a property manager. I've done all kinds of things. I've worked for the post office. I have an extensive background in business. I mean, I've seen like all kinds of businesses in operation. So, and I've traveled a lot. So, I have like an extensive background. I have a lot of defining moments in my life that, that helps me create all this writing. So I remember that Emily Dickinson's poetry, made an impression on me. And her poetry was like just these short little poems. And I learned long ago that if you could say it in a few words, it's better than, making something, too lengthy, and then nobody really reads it to the end. So that's what I do. I'm extremely happy to give you this interview. So
Well,
anytime you want to call me back or find out anything else, I'll be glad to talk to you.
okay, Alice, and I'll never forget your name.
That's for sure. Well, Alice means truth.
We are
That's
the
right.
truth. We are the truth.
So if you want the truth, you just talk to a person named Alice.
All right, Alice.
It's all out there.
Okay.
Alice, again, have a wonderful day.
You too.
Take care.
Bye-bye. See that, Rob? I am Alice. I am truth. You have to believe everything I say. All right. How about this grandmother from Texas, inspired by her 3-year-old grandson who loves macaroni and animals? She wrote Tony the Pony. It's about teaching kids about animals. Dana Harlow. I love the names in this book.
Mitty the kitty, Tater the gator, a blue frog down in the bog. It's just really cute, and it's just I got to read it to my grandson, and of course he giggled, and that was my whole purpose, is to make him giggle, and it's kind of a lasting gift for him because it says it's dedicated to him. Yeah.
Now, has this started you on a career of writing children's books?
Well, I have 2 other children's books that I've published. One is called The Boy with the Broken Brain. I've worked in special education for 34 years, and it's really about how all children learn differently. And so this kiddo, because learning is difficult for him, he thinks his brain is broken. And so he finally comes across a teacher that realizes he's very unique and has lots of great qualities. And so he kind of turns around that thinking about himself because this teacher is so clued in to what's really important. And so I loved that. And then I wrote Grand's Elf House, which is a great story about a grandmother and her granddaughter. And this grandmother really loves nature, and so she kind of teaches her about nature through the story of elves. And she builds an elf house in the backyard to attract the elves, but of course the elves don't come unless they hear children laughing. So it's just a really sweet story too, and it's actually based on my relationship with my stepmother who passed away from cancer. But during that time she was ill. I got to write this story on her behalf, and she loved it, and she got to see that it came to fruition before she passed away. So it's a really sweet book too.
You just suddenly started writing?
I've always loved writing, and I'm currently working on a novel. I've written ever since I was a little kid. I would write stories all the time, and I had a teacher that told me I needed to write someday, and I had a grandmother who totally encouraged me. And so I finally just said, I'm just going to try it. And so I turned them in, and sure enough, they said they're publishable. So that's been a great dream come true.
So you turned all of these into Paige?
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to keep going now. Now that my confidence is up, I'm going to try a novel.
Good for you.
And I have a couple other thoughts in mind on 2 other books. So I can't do so much during the school year because I work full time, but I love to write in the summer. So that's kind of my activity hobby for summer.
Do you have time to promote the books?
Yeah, I have actually a signing and a reading coming up at a local library. And I also have a country club, I believe, that I'm going to be doing like a summer activity for kids, do a reading and a signing of my books. So, that's the best way, word of mouth. And because I'm in the education system, I like to tell my friends, and that kind of travels through. And I know that I've had a professor when I was working on my master's. She wanted her special ed students to read The Boy with the Broken Brain, so she helped promote it quite a bit too. So I'm just here and there, promote it as I can.
That's great. You're just starting right where you are. I tell people that all the time. They think they have to fly to New York or something. You just
just do what you love, and usually if you really love something and you have a knack at it, it's going to be successful. But really, it was never about, this could make money or anything like that. It was always about, I want to leave a lasting impression. That was really why I wanted to do it.
Nice, Dana. And now Diana Workman brings us the Bimmeron stories. But before we go any further, Diana, what's Bimmeron mean?
When I was born, my little brother was only 2 years old, and my grandmother brought him in, and he couldn't say baby. It came out Bimmy. and that was it. That's how the BIM came around. And then Ron was my husband, who died in 2013, and he had typed a lot of my poems. So I wanted to incorporate him into the title of the book. So I added them on and became Bimaron.
This is a bunch of poems you wrote.
Yes.
Over how many years?
I'm going to be 68, and I would say over 60 years I've been accumulating my work.
How many poems did you publish?
There's 7 in this book. Some are about stars. One's about a clown. One's about dreaming. One's about a frog, a dancing frog. One's about a rooster. One's about a father who loses his shoe.
So these are for children?
Oh, most definitely, yes.
And I understand you have some grandchildren?
Oh, I've got 2 beautiful granddaughters, yes.
Are they loving this book?
Well, according to their daddy, yes.
So this is really a tribute to your husband, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, he was a good man. My goal more than anything is to make children happy. You know, like with the poem about the stars. Let them go out and let them look at the stars and let them think about, you know, what happens up there, you know, when the stars twinkle and when they shoot across the sky. So it's more to make children happy than actually selling. But I do hope that I do sell, because the more I sell, the more children I can be reaching out to. I've already talked to a 5th grade teacher, and I'll probably be going into the schools. I've talked to some librarians. They have story hours in the libraries, and I'd like to go in and read some of the poems to them and, you know, get the children's reactions from them.
Great, Diana. And writing poems for 60 years. I'll talk to you on your next book. Next, a story of 2 passions brought together in song, written by Roland Taylor. The name of his book, Hip Hop Chess Master. Roland, I assume there's music in the message, right?
Yeah, it is. It's kind of a unique concept. It almost has its own soundtrack to it. I was a hip hop artist. Well, still am. You know, once you've been, you always are. You never stop.
Right.
But you know, I performed when I was a teenager and up to my young adult ages, and I said, you know, what a unique concept if I could actually write a song to go along with the concept of the book. It has its own original song. It's called Checkmate. And the end of the book, it actually has the lyrics of the song, and it has a link to where you can go on the internet and check the song out.
How do hip hop and chess work together?
Well, in this concept, it's just the fact that it's 2 loves of a young man who is in middle school, a story of generations. His father passed down the love of hip hop to him. And the young man's grandfather passed down the love of chess to him as well. So he has 2 passions, 2 loves, one from his father, one from his grandfather. And that's how they collide in the book, in the concept. One, his friends in the school knows about, which is hip hop. The other passion is chess, which he's kind of kept under wraps because he really wasn't sure if his friends or people at school would really dig it. So at the end of the book, they kind of collide, and he has to own up to loving both, and, you know, having acceptance of both, and not being afraid to show your passion for whatever you like.
Right. To be true to yourself.
To be true to yourself, exactly. My son was my muse. Of course, it is a fictional tale. He was middle school at the time, and he's a boy. So, you know, boys don't really read that much. So I said, well, you know, if he's not going to read, maybe if I write something, maybe he'll read that. And that was the emphasis of me writing the book. And I was motivated to then go ahead and try to get it published. So here we are.
Did he read it?
He did read it. He loved it. He loved the fact that he was actually the main character, which was pretty cool. 2 songs that go with the book. One's the main song that I did, but the other one is a song called Lunchroom Battle, where, you know, if you're a hip hop head, you know, and you're in school and you're at lunch, you know, you go back and forth with freestyle battles. He actually performs on the song. Now he's a few years older now. So when he hears his voice, of course, it's changed over time, and he gets a little embarrassed when he listens to it now. But I thought it was pretty cool to have him on there. Now it's out there forever. But it's for everyone. It's not just for boys. It's for girls too. It's a tale about about family values. It's a tale about acceptance. There's a little love story in there.
Aw.
There's some action, some suspense. So, I think, and it's a short story. It's not a long Harry Potter type novel, So, any kid can pick it up and read it from beginning to end, get a sense of accomplishment. And if they love hip hop, again, like I said, there's a song at the end as well.
All right, before I let you go, let's hear this theme song for the Hip Hop Chess Master.
Checkmate. The end of the game is checkmate. The outcome depends on the moves that you make. It's all about the strategy. Never doubt yourself, or else it'll end up as a tragedy. Now in life, you have to make moves like a chess game. You always have
All right, yeah, kids are going to love this. What's next?
We're getting it out there slowly but surely. Like I said, this is my first book. My intention of writing the book wasn't to go sell a book. My intention of writing the book was to get my son to read. But if we get some sales out of it, then the more the merrier. Share the story with the world.
Okay, we're going to let your music take us out of here, rolling for a quick commercial break, but we're coming right back after these words.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything: copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
And we're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. Thanks for joining us. Our next book is a psychological thriller, and it sounds like one, Along Came a Watchman by Paul Daugherty. Paul.
Okay, the book's about a man named Philip Watchman who works as a location coordinator for an up-and-coming television show called The Paranormal Network. Phil's the kind of guy who always feels like he's been a day late or a dollar short for everything. And somehow he's managed to survive 2 failed marriages that on bad days he still wears on his sleeve, which is probably why he drinks too much. I mean, flip side, he has 3 great kids, but they're entering their teens now, and unfortunately come with a hefty custody payment he can barely afford. But there's a light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Lately, there have been rumors about the show being picked up and broadcast nationally, which would mean a substantial raise in pay and expanded benefit. There also have been whispers that, according to the suits upstairs, everything hinges on the success or failure of this particular season-ending finale, which has put extra pressure on Phil. Phil as a location coordinator, he feels like his success is a lot like a real estate agent. It's largely dependent upon 3 things: location, location, location.
Right.
And Phil is the kind of guy, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't break the rules. And despite his personal life being somewhat of a train wreck, he's always been the kind of man who shies away from taking chances. He plays it safe because he's been burned like lots of people have. Unfortunately, because of his obsession with one house in particular, he decides to break company policy. He opens an anonymous letter he should never have read. That one small transgression will lead him down a road to this sleepy little town somewhere in the backwoods of South Carolina, where he will ultimately confront all of the suppressed demons he's ever tucked away for safekeeping. The crux of the story is about how much of it's real, how much is going on in his head, and in a larger sense, how does a person confront something that they've always believed can't possibly exist? No one can reconcile with something that rails against everything they believe sacrosanct, or can they?
I don't know, can they?
Well, that's the point of this story. The choices you make sometimes can work out for the good. Sometimes they may work out a little different than you ever dreamed they could possibly do.
Did you find that in your own life?
it's the people I know in life. You know, it's the little things that you pick up on, like the little idiosyncrasies, the little ways they say a word, the little things about people. You know, and you kind of incorporate that and into your stories, I guess, with people and with your characters, and a part of yourself, you know, has to play out the same way.
Right.
The story itself, the larger point, is about Philip Watchman and his life, and the things about him, the things about the people he meets. Should he have listened to his gut? Should he have asked a question? Should he have just blown it off and not thought about this? There's times in your life you walk down the street, right, and you say to yourself, there's just this little voice inside. You say, don't go there. Don't walk down that. Walk across the street. You don't know why it tells you that. Sometimes you listen, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you walk away and nothing happens. And sometimes there's a reason it's telling you that. Sometimes your gut's telling you something you may not be able to see just yet. You know, maybe you should listen to the little things. Maybe sometimes you should, you know, be more aware and not so trusting.
Don't we all know that, boy? All right. Thanks so much, Paul. The title of this next book might get you thinking. It's called The Dash Between. You know, when you look at a tombstone, Rob, there's the date and then a dash and then a date. Well, you know, it's what happens in between that matters, right? Well, Richard Collier taught literature for a couple of decades, and now he continues teaching through writing. We're going to learn something about that dash. Richard.
See, I wrote most of it when I retired back in 1999, and I recorded the stories I used to tell my students, and they loved those stories, you know, because I was trying to entertain them. I figured if I could entertain them, I'd get their attention, and if I got their attention, I could educate them, and perhaps I could even inspire them. So those are the three goals that are in this book. I consider myself a proud American, and the book explains why I'm a proud American. It deals with a lot of history of the 20th century, and there are a lot of stories that are meant to entertain, make the reader chuckle. And what I've done is talk about the various decades from the time I was born, the 40th decade, to the 90s, 50s, the 60s, the 70s, you know, the events that occurred during those decades. So it's historical in that regard. And I'm hoping that many people read it because what I reveal historically is not being taught to today's children, I don't think.
For instance?
225 years ago, when the Constitution was written, the means of transportation back then were sailboats, horse and buggy, and walking. And the means of communication back then were books, magazines, newspapers. And then 225 years later, the means of transportation are jets, rockets, cars, and the means of communication today are unbelievable. You got computers, cell phones, smartphones, iPads, just unbelievable. And where did these inventions that we now enjoy, where did they occur? Well, most of them occurred here in the United States. Why? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, I'd say. And those things are not communicated to today's children as to, you know, why we are such a great nation.
So these are stories. When you were a teacher, you taught literature, and when you were a teacher, you told these stories, and you recorded all of these stories and decided to put them all in a book.
Yeah, right.
And you're giving your perspective on these various decades.
True.
You want to educate and inspire and enlighten.
Right, that's true. And I'm hoping that, you know, parents will have children read my book so they get a sense of American history. And I'm hoping that older people who read my book will be inspired to write their own dash between, because I've showed them how to do it.
Well, thanks for that, Richard. Finally, Christopher Jones felt the power of writing in a big way when he was a very young man. Well, now that he's in college, he's finding his way in part by publishing his first book. It's entitled Saints Haven, The Line. Christopher.
Well, when I was like 14 or 15, I was challenged to do a creative writing assignment. And I wrote a story about this American spy infiltrating this Soviet base And when I was writing the book, I felt like almost like an incredible power within myself. Like I was really excited, like my hands were shaking. I just felt really good about myself. And so when the assignment was done, I thought to myself, I could be a writer all the time. I could just write all the time. And that's what I've been doing ever since, really. Saints Haven, I started when I was 15, and I finished it when I was 19. Each different part, because there's 4 parts to the book, each part took about a year. My book is about this kid in the 1930s with this supernatural power. He's a black kid, but he gets selected to go to a whites-only school. He lives in the South, dealing with the white children at the school who are not really pleased about him being at the school.
Okay.
The second part of the book, Noah discovers more things about his supernatural power. He discovers he's got like a limited form of telepathy. He discovers that there is a monster in the town, and he confesses all of his abilities to 2 of his friends, as well as a white girl who is his friend at the school. I think that's an important thing to kind of, take away from life, is that no matter what kind of suffering you're going through, there's always going to be somebody to help you through, just like Noah helped Sarah Montgomery and is supportive of her.
Okay. Nice. So what's your plan now?
We had a book signing at my University of Michigan Flint.
Okay.
I did pretty well, mostly friends and family who were excited to see that I was finally done. My brother, when he found out that I was finally finished, because my brother, because you know how brothers are.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my God, like you'll never get done. But then when he saw that I was done, he was like, oh my God, it's your book. This is incredible. So a lot of people were happy for me. I've just been so relieved that the publishing process is finally done.
Oh, we've heard that before, Christopher. Trust me. It's like giving birth, but in most cases, it takes even more than 9 months to get this baby out. You know what I'm saying? And like kids, it's frustrating and stressful and awesome and wonderful all at the same time. So there you go. And here we go, Rob, wrapping up another edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Come on back next week, same time, same place, or you can download us anytime you want at 710WOR.iHeart.com. Happy Mother's Day, moms. Have a great weekend.